And we are rolling on what day?
Welcome to Politicon's 2018 College Debate Showcase. We have some amazing teams here. We have University of Verne taking on University of California, Los Angeles. Joining me to chair the debates is Clay Aiken. Clay, take it away.
Good morning, everybody. There we go. I can hear myself, so I might be able to hear these guys. Thank you guys very much for being back this year. We're excited to have UCLA and the University of Verne here to debate some of the topical and pressing issues of the day. Our first topic for this debate between the University of California, Los Angeles, and University of Verne is that this House believes the internal political division is the most pressing danger facing the United States. Politics has become incredibly divisive, especially in the past decade or so, and many people believe that that is one of the most pressing issues facing politics in this country. This House believes that the internal political division is the most pressing danger facing the United States. University of Verne over here is going to be agreeing with that statement, and the University of California, Los Angeles will be disagreeing with that statement. We're going to set this up traditionally with each body being able to give them the opportunity to make an opening statement for 7 minutes, a closing statement for 7 minutes, and there will be a rebuttal as well. So we'll go back and forth between the two 3 times. I'm Clay Aiken again. I will be chairing this debate and the debates this afternoon. We're lucky enough to be joined by Mo Kelly today. He's the host of the Mo Kelly Show from KFI-FM here in Los Angeles. And look at that, you got a lot more applause than I did. We'll start with the government. Prime Minister Jonas from the University of Verne will have the opening from University of Verne, and the opposition leader from UCLA is Esper. He'll be followed by Noor from University of Verne, and Nikhil from UCLA responding, and then Jonas and Esther will have a chance for a rebuttal. So before we begin this, remember the teams have been assigned the topic, and they've been assigned the side that they're supposed to take during this debate. These arguments that they're making are not endorsements of them or the school on any particular side of the issue. They've been assigned these, and they've done research to make their arguments the best. So I'll call the House to order, and on the motion that this House believes the internal political division is the most pressing danger facing the United States, and I invite the Prime Minister to open the case for the government bench.
Judges, ladies and gentlemen, there is a common adage that we as a country like to say, that we have never been as divided as we are today. I mean, besides that one time that we literally killed each other over our divisions, I guess. But even though we aren't as divided today as we were then, I do believe that our divisions today are more dangerous and more threatening to this country than they have ever been. Because there will always be material threats to America. War, disease, global warming, many of which our honorable opposition might describe. But political divisions pose an existential and structural threat to this country, something with many more ramifications than any material threat. My partner Noor and I stand on a simple principle, that a house divided amongst itself cannot stand. We're going to prove 3 things to you today. First, that internal political divisions push people away from political participation because it becomes harder to solve issues. Second, we're going to prove that internal divisions make us less tolerable people, and we talk less with people we disagree with. And finally, we're going to prove to you that internal divisions make us question our most fundamental values and beliefs as a nation. For these reasons, internal divisions are the most pressing issue that endangers our country. First, let's talk about how internal divisions make it harder to solve important issues. Because internal divisions based on party affiliation leads to less cooperation on issues that actually matter. In 2009, it was the stimulus package. In 2016, it was Zika funding. Republicans refused to support these causes because Democrats were the ones who brought them forward. Even the issue of global warming can't be addressed because we're politically divided on the survival of our species. Partisan divisions take non-political issues and make them political, making them harder to solve and harder to prevent. Now, what's the real harm of this? Because of internal divisions, people become disenchanted with the political system. They're less likely to get involved. Internal divisions create a self-perpetuating cycle in which people don't care about politics, then their representatives make policies that aren't representative of them, and because they're not solving the issue, people just care less about politics. That cycle continues. By creating a system based on political divisions instead of fair representation and common values, important issues don't get solved and people just don't care about politics. Before I continue, yeah.
Insofar as these people are voting for representatives who claim to represent them, your worst case is that nothing happens. What we're going to prove to you shortly is that this actively exacerbates the situation.
Our worst case is that we don't solve issues like global warming. I think that's a pretty good worst case to try and fight against. Let's talk about how internal political divisions create social divisions along political lines. So in the status quo, political affiliation has become a part of people's identity. This is problematic because now, when our political beliefs are challenged, instead of having a healthy discourse or a debate about the issues, we believe that these are personal attacks on our very being. Internal divisions and the conflation of political and social identity leads to what political scientist Bill Bishop called political sorting. Political sorting is the process by which Americans move to communities because those communities are more representative of their viewpoints. So a liberal might move to a college town like Claremont or a big city like San Francisco, and a conservative might move to a suburb like Orange County or a rural area like the Central Valley. In 2016, the Democratic representative from my hometown won re-election. His opponent, a Republican, literally up and moved his family to Texas because he couldn't handle liberal California. In 2004, 48.3% of Americans lived in a county that was hyper-partisan, insofar as it went to a presidential candidate by more than 20 points. That is twice as many people lived in a hyper-partisan county in 1976, and that number has only increased since 2016. Sorting has three large-scale societal impacts. First, Americans who live in ideologically homogenous communities become more radical in their political beliefs. They go further left or they go further right. Second, people in that area's political minority become less engaged and are less likely to vote, are less likely to participate. And third, people just don't talk with people who disagree with them, something that is incredibly harmful in a system that is built around people having civil discourse about important issues.
Wouldn't political sorting mean that the people who are being represented would be represented by someone who agrees with them more?
Not necessarily, because there are still people in political sorting who don't feel like they have an impetus to participate. This is why a lot of young people in America just don't vote. But all of this leads to one large societal problem, and that is what happens is that people care more about their political affiliation and their political divisions than they do about their values as Americans. Because political ideologies become what unites us with people. But this is flawed, because inherently, political divisions can only unite us with so many people.
Joe, I want to jump in there. You say partisanship has increased, but do you have any objective data or historical examples which validate that premise?
Yes. What I talked about is that over 50% of Americans today live in an area that is considered hyper-partisan. Insofar as the county that they live in voted 20% for a Democratic nominee for president or a Republican nominee for president. There are a lot less communities where there's a plurality of viewpoints or a plurality of issues. What this does is it makes people more concerned and more affiliated with their party than it does with their values as Americans. Because America wasn't meant to be a country built on partisanship. It was a country that was founded on values, on the belief that we are all created equal, on the principle of democracy, of life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, humanity, dignity, respect. A conservative might never see eye to eye with someone like me on an issue like healthcare or immigration. But that's okay if we can agree on a principle level. If I can look across the aisle and see someone not as a Republican, but as an American, as a believer in the fundamental principle of democracy on which our country was founded, we can get things done. We can solve problems. We can come to a consensus, because even if we have different means, we have a same end. We have a same goal. But because of internal divisions, we've started acting against our better democratic values. Both parties, Democrats and Republicans, have engaged in the process of gerrymandering to shut out another political viewpoint. That is the most undemocratic and most un-American thing that I can think of. We forgot that we share values with other people. We forgot that there are reasons why we work together, and that things matter in this country more than whether or not someone has a D or an R next to their name. Nor and I believe that these political divisions are the most pressing danger that faces America. Because of this, we are very proud to propose. Thank you.
Thank you. Well done. We'll ask Esther from UCLA to make the case for the opposition pitch.
Internal political division is nothing more than a symptom of the problem at hand. Internal political division is something that has existed in America for decades, and we don't think that it's necessarily bad. However, what opposition is here today to tell you is that there's an issue that is far more pressing and far more imminent than just simply internal political division. And we're here to say that it is the distorted information passed on from news and social media that creates a far greater threat than simply political division, which they prove to us is a problem, but they don't show to us why it is the most pressing problem. And instead, we're here to tell you that what causes some of the most great political division that we see today is at its root coming from the media that we have in the present. So first of all, we think that media is incredibly important for democracy to be successful, right? The media allows ideas and information to be spread and easily accessible to the constituents of a democracy. That way, the people can make informed decisions and make educated choices about who they want representing them and what kind of policies they want to see in place. However, with the advent of modern news and social media, we see a trend towards sensationalism, one that distorts the role of media in delivering accurate and truthful information. Why is this bad? So we see that most people now have social media as one of the main forms of news, right? Most people check social media every day, and they consume a lot of their news from checking Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube. Social media, however, operates on popularizing what gets the most attention. That is, likes and shares are what creates popularity over a subject rather than the actual matter. So it doesn't matter if something is the most important, only that it generates enough shock and attention to attract more and more viewers. This has driven traditional news sites to compete with the unique form of entertainment and news that social media provides. Traditional news headlines have now become more sensationalist than ever and also rely on things like shock value or attracting greater amounts of attention in order to compete. We see days dedicated on President Trump's small hands rather than his actual policy decisions. And we also see that more complex analyses are lost in the noise of shallower and more attention-grabbing ones. Additionally, the lack of regulation on social media sites has meant that fake news has risen more than ever before. That is, people can read articles and absorb information without truly checking if they're legitimate. Yes.
Okay, we think that opposition needs to do a little bit more than say that there are other pressing issues that face America. Why is it that internal divisions are not the most important danger to America? Can you give us a reason why that, besides saying that media is as well?
Absolutely, that's the rest of my speech. So, one reason we think it's much more of a pressing danger is because it's this phenomenon that actually causes or amplifies the internal political division that we see today, right? Without the current phenomenon of news and social media, the issue that he speaks about wouldn't be as grave as what we do have. So
Well, I might make the argument that the fact that there is internal political division is what's caused more of this media sensationalism. So if I am a media company or if I'm a network, I'm going to gear my programming towards what I know my audience wants, and therefore they might want more sensationalism because they are already internally divided. How can you make the argument that internal division is not what's driving the media issue?
Absolutely. We think that internal division, that is, differing ideas, competing with one another, is a natural and healthy part of democracy. It is only through the mechanism of modern news and social media that it becomes a problem, and we'll go on to discuss why. So why is something like social media uniquely harmful, right? And why does it amplify or cause even greater issues than just simply internal political division? Because social media uniquely creates incredibly insulated echo chambers. What this means is that sites like Facebook and Twitter have algorithms and ads that are specifically tailored to feed user content that they like and respond positively to. Meanwhile, content that they don't like or respond negatively to is hidden away. This creates a feedback loop where people are constantly seeing opinions and things that they agree with generated by computer code, right? This results in a lack of engagement with the other side and a lack of open discourse or debate about the things that really matter in our country. We believe that one-sided bubbles not only create a lack of engagement, but also pave the way for extremists to come in and spread more radical ideas more easily in bubbles of thoughts that only agree with them. But secondly, why is this an issue from foreign influences as well, right? We saw with the 2016 election that Twitter bots and Facebook have been manipulated and altered by foreign powers such as Russia. Over 150 million people, that is more people than had voted, have been influenced by Russian ads. We think that this is an issue because we don't see that American citizens are truly being informed and making educated decisions about what they want that's best for them. Instead, they're the target of psychological manipulation from other countries that don't want the best for America. So why is this so bad, and why isn't political division the worst problem facing the United States, right? We believe that the US is unique in that it has a democracy with various diverse ideologies. We have a two-party system. We have conflicting ideas at the center of our government, unlike one-party democracies like Japan, for example. That means that ideas should be able to thrive in the marketplace of ideas. So the truth and the best concepts win and come out on top when they freely compete with each other in the open air of like our country, right? However, when we have something like vote manipulation or targeted ad campaigns that change people's minds, we see that it's a corruption of the way our citizens gain information and relate to our government and how it's working. What they're seeing is not a truthful representation of the state of the country. It's rather amplifying a corrupted version of what people who are trying to manipulate our constituents are trying to get them to see. Furthermore, we are preeminent.
Answer very quickly. So social media, you're saying, is the most pressing danger?
The distorted information given out by social media is, yes. So we believe that this is preeminent, right? Ours is kind of amplifying the negative effects of an already existing political division that isn't bad. And furthermore, it results in a loss of trust in the government, the spread of misinformation, and threat and the death of civilized discourse in the public sphere. Thank you.
That's me. Thank you very much, Esther. We'll ask Noor from the University of Laverne to make the, it's not the rebuttal statement officially, I guess it's a closing statement then, for the University of Laverne before we come back for the rebuttals. The responding, oh, let me get these technical terms correct. The responding statement for the government. Noor from the University of Laverne.
Hello? Can everyone hear me? All right, cool, just checking. Ladies and gentlemen, I kind of want to get personal with you for a second. I want you all to understand the fact that I, as an 18-year-old, have not lived in a culture in this country that is not divided. Let me say that again. As an 18-year-old, I have not lived in a culture in this country where politics are not so divided. This is a problem. And it's not just a problem with the senators who are representing us or the president and his officials. This is a problem of our culture and everyday living in this country. It is not only the posts that we see on social media that are politically charged and divided, it is also the Nike ads that we're seeing on television. It's also this giant statue of a characterization of a president that ought to be representing our country. We do live in a cultural problem that we ought to fix. Because if we don't fix it, and we continue to be as divided as we are now, that leaves us exposed to other dangers and makes us unable to find solutions to the problems that are facing our generation and the ones that come after us. This is an important cultural problem that we must fix. Because if we continue to make political issues, which are not political, like my partner Jonas had said, we're going to end up not fixing things that need to be fixed. We have scientists who have released reports that tell us if we continue to live the way that we are living now, we only have less than 10 years to fix climate change. 10 years. And I'm only 18. I do not understand a different culture than the one that we exist now. And that has been denied to me and my peers. This is a pressing danger. We need to change how we solve issues that are not political. And not only that, but our division has left out the fundamental values that we ought to hold as a nation. It has made it so that I no longer see people as American, but I see them as Democrat or Republican. The opposition team wants to talk about the marketplace of ideas and how important it is to have discourse. But I say that our discourse is limited in the status quo. We are no longer a network of ideas that can fix problems and make us closer. Now we are two sides to the same coin. How can we expand our ideology if we only go from left to right? It's nonsensical. It's illogical. We must expand our culture so that we are not just red or blue or playing to one team. We need to expand our culture so we can actually figure out what the heck we're doing in our lives. Because this is a mess. You know, they're right. Like, Russia did meddle in our elections. They're still releasing ads now that are making it so that we vote differently in the midterms happening very soon. This is real threats, and they are dangers. But information isn't the result of that. Information is exacerbating the real issue, which is division. Russia and these different players, let me finish my sentence. Russia and these different players are only exposing our weaknesses. They are playing to our divisions. This is why they are releasing these ads that say, for example, Hillary ought to go to prison.
Are you not making her argument for her, though? I mean, you're talking about information being exacerbating division. But if you're making the argument that division is the most pressing issue, then it's hard to concede her point to her, though, by saying that information is exacerbating that.
The ultimate refutation, right, is that the negative has not upheld their burden of showing how internal political division as a concept, as a principle, is something that is a threat. We are saying that internal political division is a weakness that we have created for ourselves. And these foreign actors are playing to that weakness. They are literally using our division to attack us and manipulate the voting process.
Danger is specific. You mentioned climate change. That's very specific. If we're in danger of something, you should be able to give me other examples of what will happen specifically.
Because of internal political
Correct.
division? Okay, let me go ahead and give some more examples. So not only does internal political division create an inability to solve normal issues such as climate change that are normally not very political, but it also makes us harder to unite within our own parties that we identify with. Now let me give a very specific example. Within the Democratic Party of Missouri, there was new language that was advocated for to be put in the language of the Democratic Party, and it was pro-life language. They wanted to show that people who were against abortion could also be a Democrat in a state like Missouri. And it was it went through, but then other Democrats who were pro-abortion and pro-choice went wild. They literally had a very big problem with this, right? And they made it so that they actually removed the new language that was supposed to invite pro-life people in, showing that even people with different personal ideologies in the Democratic Party cannot even unite together in the Democratic Party to solve very specific issues such as being pro-worker, right? Or trying to raise the minimum wage. It is this idea that your personal issues are making it even harder to ally with your supposed peers who are supposed to be in the same party as you. How are you supposed to build an infrastructure to even get your voice to a platform that can create policy change if you cannot even unite yourselves within your own party? So we're not only seeing this upper macro division between red and blue, we're seeing an internal ideological division within, like, the Democratic Party in Missouri, for example. This is the fundamental issue as a principle that we disagree with. We need to focus on the pragmatic issues rather than the ideological ones, or else big problems are going to happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Noor, and the University of Laverne. Nikhil from UCLA to respond for the opposition.
Check. Hey Politicon, how's it going? I hope you guys are having a wonderful Sunday afternoon. My name's Nikhil and I'm going to tell you why they lose this debate. Okay, let's get started. What they're trying to tell you, in essence, is that political division leads to a few, well-defined harms. They tell you that firstly, there's division and polarization in the nation. Secondly, that there's gridlock in the political scenario that prevents meaningful legislation from being passed. And thirdly, that there's alienation, both of voters from the democratic process and also of individuals from participating in meaningful political discourse. Also, they tell you about how identity is now policy, and we don't really buy that, but let's deal with the first 3 points first, because I think they're more pressing. Firstly, on the topic of division and polarization, Esther's already done a phenomenal job of proving to you why that division arises from the issues of media distortion, as we brought up to you, and Mr. Aiken brought that up in a question as well. Right? Insofar as we've identified the first level cause for this and proven to you that other harms exist from what we're trying to argue is a bigger threat, it makes sense that in terms of deciding what to address first or what's more pressing, you'd favor our side over theirs. But secondly, they tell you about gridlock, right? This idea that the political process is jammed. Well, let's be honest, politicians in Washington could perfectly well come to agreements with each other and pass fairly competent policy. I mean, most people who make it into political representation tend to be fairly well educated and concerned about politics and economics, and yet we have inefficient policies that have been passed time and time again throughout history by populists and demagogues. The reason being that democracies and political representatives in them inherently need to appeal to their voters. And their voters' interests might lie contrary to those of the nation, but that accountability is what matters. Insofar as we demonstrate to you that it's this disunity in ideology between the voters that stems from this information distortion caused by modern media, we are actually the cause for that and not them, which is why we take that point as well. Not right now, Joyce. Thirdly, the topic of alienation, right? It's a terrifying idea that your identity no longer means your identity, that everything is now political, everything is now vicious. But again, they just assert this, alluding to the way it happens in the real world. It's Esther here who comes up here and gives you a clear explanation for the mechanism behind it. She tells you that social media draws people into increasingly isolated bubbles, insular little discussion spaces where people's opinions are reinforced, fed to them by machine algorithms, right? Insofar as we again claim that we're the cause of this alienation at a greater level, I think we take that point as well. The bottom line of all of this is, look, we agree that what they're saying is harmful, but firstly, they don't demonstrate to you that it's the biggest harm, and secondly, we show you the ground causes and show you why our issue is more deserving of this nation's attention and resources than their issue is. Jonas.
Okay, we think that Nikhil and Esther are making a pretty fundamental error, which is that they're getting cause and effect mixed up. The reason why echo chambers exist, the reason why these separate bubbles exist, is because of these internal divisions. Internal division is the cause of everything that they've been arguing for.
Okay, it's really glad we anticipated that one because I've got a written response for it. How many of you are on Facebook, Instagram, or some other kind of social media, let's say today? Yeah, I see pretty much everyone's hands going up, right? Insofar as not all of these people, maybe at Politicon, but not in the United States, will vote in upcoming elections, but their opinions will continue to influence the way people think about politics going forward and our conceptions of democracy and the principles it's supposed to uphold. Insofar as everyone here is exposed to news stories that break on these platforms, we think that just in terms of sheer magnitude, we take that point. That's the first reason. The second reason to directly target his assertion about cause and effect is what we're calling the preeminence argument, right? The reason we think we cause them is if you got rid of internal political division altogether, while keeping the factors that we bring up, leaving a divided populace, you're dealing with one of two scenarios, right? The first is you're dealing with a government that is oblivious to the wants and needs of its people. We think that's bad because that kind of a disconnect is inherently harmful to people's representation in ways that Jonas and Noor already beautifully explained to you. But the second alternative is that somehow magically, once internal political division disappears, people are going to be more united. The problem is we don't quite buy that picture. America, as I've come to learn as an immigrant here, seems to be a lot about individualism. And insofar as one's identity is key to them, they won't always want to be defined by which party they vote for or which political issues they stand for. At the end of the day, they're looking for meaningful reform about climate change or healthcare or job security or for certain individuals, food stamps programs that they rely on for a daily basis. All of these issues are a more compelling part of an individual's identity than partisanship, right? On our side of the house, we are identifying a threat that prevents people from engaging in meaningful discussions about these issues, sharing their common struggles, and coming to solutions. On their side, they're just talking about divided politicians at the top, ignoring the causes beneath. So that's preeminence. But the third reason is this inherent threat to the principle of democracy. Look, we think that hurting people is awful as is, but even if you don't buy that our mechanisms work, we think there's an inherent threat to something greater, the principle of democracy, something that will hopefully apply to every American who will ever be born in this country going forward or who will immigrate here, right? Insofar as on their side of the house, you open the world up to psycho-manipulation by potentially foreign powers through a system that's poorly understood by us so far, insofar as you close spaces for discourse and you're completely okay with people existing in these echo chambers, insofar as you're okay with sensationalist media taking over the public, where 12 reasons you should vote for Donald Trump is more important than actual meaningful analyses by political experts that will make key decisions to people in coming years, you favor a world that's inherently worse for democracy, where voters are less powerful, where political representatives are less accountable, where America looks like a worse place. Unfortunately, my timer didn't start, so how much time do I have?
30 seconds.
All right, so in conclusion, I'm just going to, do you have any questions, by the way? I'm just going to rehash everything we've given to you today and explain clearly why we want this. Media plays a fundamental role in a democracy. Insofar as modern media has been distorted so that role isn't fulfilled, people are harmed, as is the ideal of democracy. We think that's a much bigger harm than on their side of the house, because while they claim internal political division is the biggest harm, we claim it's a symptom. We show you other ways it's worse. We show you how the ways these in here are significantly greater in terms of magnitude and in terms of scope than their harms. And finally, we prove to you they've not satisfied their burden, which is to prove that that is harm numero uno. And so far as we've proven that, I think we've taken this debate. I'm extremely proud to oppose.
Thank you, Nikhil. We'll now turn back to Jonas from the University of Verne for a abbreviated rebuttal, 5 minutes for rebuttal.
I'm going to give you guys a quick breakdown of what we've heard from both opposition speakers and tell you why categorically at the end of the day, the government team is the one who wins this debate. So, right off the bat, what we got from Esther was this idea that the media and media distortion is the most pressing problem. We think we needed to hear a little bit more from the opposition. Because of the wording of the motion, we think opposition would have been better focusing their case on why internal divisions are not a dangerous issue. We think that it's a little bit of a cop-out, but they get to it later, so we're okay with it. Now, Esther tells you two things. The first is that social media leads to sensationalization and creates echo chambers. But we tell you that political division is what created these echo chambers. It's why liberals only like to watch MSNBC, and it's why conservatives only like to watch Fox News. The media is a symptom of the cause of internal divisions. Now, they tell you about foreign influence, but we say that they played on our internal divisions. The reason why it was so easy for Russia to essentially hack our democracy was because we were already so frivolously divided on partisan issues, and because we forgot what our values as Americans are. Now, when they start to get at the core of the debate, they tell you that democracy is better off with a plurality of ideas. But what I proved to you right off the bat in my first speech was that there's less plurality of ideas and issues because of political sorting. People who are of a political minority in an area are less likely to engage with the democratic process when they believe that they're the only person in that area who holds their belief. Now, the reason why political divisions are the most dangerous is what Noor tells you, which is that we get exposed to other threats. It becomes easier for foreign countries to interfere with our democracy. All of these problems become easier when we are divided because of our internal political divisions. How could we possibly solve the issue of social media and echo chambers when we can't even figure out our national identity or our values? Our friends on the opposition tell you that the media distort political views, but we tell you that the media itself plays on internal divisions and creates the bubbles that they detail. They confuse the cause and effect. So we agree that yes, they are issues, but the reason why all of those issues that they talk about happen are because of internal divisions. So we think that we effectively turn their case. Now, the last thing that I want to address that we got out of Nikhil, which is that Nikhil gives this outcome, which is that under our world, the government becomes less representative of the people. But we turn this, because we tell you that underrepresentation happens because of internal divisions. People don't want to participate because policymakers are divided themselves. They are divided on party lines. They're not willing to reach out and compromise. They didn't want to compromise on things like the stimulus package. They don't want to compromise on things like global warming. That leads to policy being passed that is less representative. So we think that every single harm that our friends from UCLA have told you happens because of internal divisions. So we think on that alone, we win this debate. But let's talk, yeah, sure.
If you solve internal political division, you fix the efficiency of a government that no longer speaks for its people. If you fix the information gap between the media and people, you fix the heart of the issue you're talking about.
Okay, we think that you can fix the media gap by fixing internal divisions, but we think that internal divisions as they exist today are not nearly as happy-go-lucky pro-democracy as UCLA tells you. Because we tell you a realistic outcome of what happens without political divisions. If political divisions weren't as dangerous as an issue, we think that people would unite more. They would still have differences, they would still have ideological differences, but they would be able to compromise because they would share the same values. Because we forgot our values as a country. We forgot the principles that our nation was founded upon. We sacrificed our principles, we sacrificed our beliefs and the core of this country because of political divisions. We just forgot that we could reach across the aisle, that we could reach out to a Republican, we could reach out to someone of the opposite political party, and that we could compromise them. Because even if we don't agree on how policy should be enacted, even though we disagree on what policy should be carried out, we still agreed why these policies should be carried out. We had a why as a country. We had a value. We had a belief in the principle of democracy and a fair representation. But now we've turned to gerrymandering, an undemocratic process, so that we can play up more internal divisions. This is the root cause of these issues in America. This is the root cause of all the harms that we've talked about throughout this debate. Everything that Noor told you and everything that they told you, frankly, are happening because of internal divisions. It makes it impossible to solve issues, and it really leads to a society in which we aren't united anymore. We aren't united, we can't solve problems, and our values are being assaulted by these divisions. Because now, which party we vote for is more important than why we vote in the first place. Internal divisions are an existential threat to the foundation of this country, calling into question the values and the principles that are the lifeblood of the American system. We reject the division of society. We believe that it is more important to instead reach across the aisle and share values and share principles. We believe that is how you can solve any issue that has been brought up. We believe that this is the reason why internal divisions are the most pressing danger in America today. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonas. And the government will invite Esther to make the final rebuttal for the opposition. for UCLA.
Government side would like you to believe that there was a past, that there was an America that never had internal political division. Closer to my mouth? I'm sorry. The side of government would like to have you believe that America has existed united in the past. For as long as America has existed, we've had internal political division. Democrats and Republicans have always been warring parties. We see that political divisions were possibly even worse in the past during times like the Vietnam War. They don't explain why unity is likely to happen or why that's likely to improve America. We say we're okay with having some internal political division. However, social media, something far more ubiquitous, something far more common and yet insidious, media plays a far deeper and darker role in creating the issues that we see today, right? Okay, so let's go over the point that they've given us. They assert that we've mixed up cause and effect, that internal political division is the cause or the root of all the problems that we describe with social media. Okay, we'll take them at their best. We say, let's imagine America where there's only one party, there's only unity, and people are not divided. Does media distortion still hurt the public? The side of opposition firmly says yes. Insofar that a democracy is successful because it has an informed electorate that can make educated decisions, we say that when news and media portrays a lot of misinformation and inaccurately broadcasts the state of the nation to the people and democracy are still harmed. This is the existential threat that we're talking about, right? Not that people argue more than ever, but that people are not able to argue about the truth. That the truth is obscured from the American public because of things like foreign influence, like vote manipulation, like targeted ad campaigns that result in feedback loops. Even if there was unity in America, we see that modern media distortion provides a greater threat to the American public.
Okay, so we have to understand that political division isn't like mutually exclusive to things like social media and media distortion. You're right, political division has existed in the past. The reason why it's so dangerous now is because there is forces like media distortion that is literally wrecking our democracy because people can't unite together and create a representative base.
Yeah, that's why the media distortion is the most important issue, right? Political division has always existed. What is the problem now that's making it worse than ever? Media distortion. We don't want to get into a cause and effect argument, so let's think of the United States as a unified group. We still assert that we see greater harms. So what exactly are these harms, right? First of all, we talk about people being manipulated away from making truly educated decisions on their country. We say that the power that anyone has to purchase ads and effectively reach millions of people and shape the way they think is a power that is unprecedented and one that is truly modern, right? Russia did it in 2016, but various other players could have this effect on American democracy and the information that Americans consume. And we believe that media is not equipped properly at the moment to deal with manipulation like this and to end it before it causes permanent harm or serious harm. Furthermore, moving on to other effects, we also believe that things like echo chambers and demonization of the other side, something that government also speaks about, results in a loss of trust in the government. If people are unable to believe what they're reading and seeing, if people are constantly questioning if CNN or BBC or any of their other news networks are fake news or real news, we see that people are no longer able to believe what they're voting for, right? Because they're unable to become properly informed on the topics at hand. So we think that this not only worsens political division, but it's an issue in and of itself. Even if political division were to not exist, we believe that the freedom of information and the freedom of accurate information is what's at stake in today's debate. Are there any questions? No? Okay, so let's summarize and weigh our argument against governments, right? We understand and we recognize government's harms of different sides demonizing each other, being unwilling to engage in discourse, and generally resulting in worse fighting and worse gridlock than before. But we assert that it's the unique technological algorithm that create these feedback loops that have made political division much worse than ever before, and that even if political divisions did not exist, the perversion of the state of politics and news in reality presents a greater harm to the citizens of the United States.
Quick
When
question, I'm
people
sorry.
are unable.
Worst case scenario, all this goes bad, leads to what and when?
Well, we think it leads to a crumbling of American democracy, right? We see a loss of trust in the government, the spread of misinformation, the death of civilized discourse, vote manipulation. That is, people are no longer accurately able to vote for a government that they want.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much to both teams, University of Laverne, UCLA. You guys give each other good old handshakes there. And give them a round of applause. We're going to take a quick 10 minutes to take a break so that we can deliberate. We'll come back. We'll give you examples of what our thoughts were, and we'll let you ask us questions as well, and we'll let you know who we felt won. So we'll see you in 10 minutes.
Thank you.
Two.
I'm good. I'm fine. They're back. Okay. Yeah.
Check. There we go. Welcome back, everybody. I will say that this is my 4th year doing these. They're never ever easy necessarily, but this one was especially complex for me, at least. And because I think you both did very good jobs on very different things. And so we obviously have to choose a winner. We'll tell you about that, but we're going to talk a little bit about what our struggle was in the back. I know who's going to.
Let me start with this because I want to read this. This House believes that internal political division is the most pressing danger facing the United States. I took away from that most pressing, there's a timeliness and a sense of urgency involved, danger facing the United States. There was one statement that Norm made specifically which resonated with me. When you talked about climate change, you made a linear progression. Because of internal political division, it is precluding us doing what we need to do on climate change. And if it's not handled in 10 years, you said specifically 10 years, you gave me, if not this, then that, and ultimately that. That for me was convincing because you specifically answered the question before. You gave us specifics. And that's why I was pushing you, Esther, as far as what, if not this, then what are we looking at and when? And since we say most pressing, for me, there was a sense of urgency involved where, yes, there could be the ruination of democracy and all these pillars of society could fall, but it seemed to me you were making the argument that this would happen over time and it would be a progression, not necessarily an end result.
There were a few times that I felt you made their argument for them. And I look at these are different, I think, than the way you normally do them when you do them around the schools and everything, because the judges don't normally interrupt you and ask questions, and I don't care, but I do. But you're all going to school for what? What are you in school for?
Political science.
Okay, and you?
Political
Okay.
science.
Mathematics.
Oh, look at there. That's not what I expected.
Political science.
Okay, so I tend to assume that each of the people who come up here are going into school for political science or for law, because all of you would make incredible lawyers. And so I tend to look at it as I judge these as if though I'm either a voter or a jury. And what I liked about your argument was that you didn't answer the question, in my opinion. We actually both agree on that. You didn't answer, but they didn't see what you had coming. And to me, that was more effective, because you a few times had to make their argument for them. You know, you made the point in your rebuttal at the end, you know, you should have made this argument, which is what I'm betting you probably thought they were going to make. That political division was good for the country, perhaps, and you kind of have to make that argument if you're an attorney defending a client. You know, am I going to make the negative statement to what they're saying, or am I going to distract people? And I thought you did a very good job of distracting and confusing the audience and making it, instead of a negative statement, hey, political division is great. Instead, you said this is the person who could have committed the murder. And so you put doubt in my mind about whether or not their argument was right. And for me, that was actually really, really good. So it was confusing for me because I think you answered the question better, specifically as it was on the paper. But if I was a jury, I'd probably vote for them.
Can I just add one thing? As you did a fantastic job at the end, when you started mentioning Vietnam, I was waiting for someone to make the point that we've had political strife for decades. You made the point about the Civil War, and I didn't know if that was good or not because you opened up the door for them to make the point that political division has been the bedrock of a co-equal branch of government in the United States since the beginning. And if you had gone farther down that road, humbly, I think you would have gained more points because you would have undermined everything they had to say.
You at one point actually did, Nikhil, say, again, another great cause and effect argument, not the point here, but you did say if we got rid of political division, it wouldn't necessarily get rid of, I'm paraphrasing, it wouldn't necessarily get rid of social media, which then could then cause political division. And if we got rid of social media, your argument sounded as if though you were saying it could prevent social media. I mean, it could prevent political division. I agree. I think that was an incredible point. And you made, again, the argument about cause and effect. And I think you guys made a mistake when you let them make it about cause and effect. When they made it about, they didn't answer the question, and instead of calling them out, which you finally did at the end, you allowed them to sort of co-opt the argument. So that was my thing. We ended up kind of in a dead heat. We do have a third judge.
A quandary.
Yes, we did. We do have a third judge down there who ended up giving the debate to Laverne because officially you answered the question as it is on the paper. But I gotta say, I wanted to fight, and I didn't because we didn't have time. But I thought you did
this. Yes,
we did. We did debate it. And I think that what you did in a courtroom or on the stump would be very effective by reframing the argument. But you guys really did a very good job of answering exactly what was on the page. And this was a tough topic. So if you have other questions or thoughts for what we were thinking about,
I'm saying, and I think we were unanimous as far as stylistically. You guys won stylistically, presentation, and so forth.
That's why you guys broke last minute.
That said, I do appreciate the fact that Laverne, and it's not just this team, but Laverne historically, very conversational in the way you present your arguments, which I think is also very appealing and would be on the stump and in a courtroom. So I give you bad props for that. But in general, this was a tough one for all of us. So if you guys have questions you want to answer or you just want to thank each other, let's give it up. Let's give it up for the University of Laverne and UCLA. Thank you.